Sonic the Comic, issue 278. It looks like they'll be doing a story I never thought they'd do out of spite for all the Echidnas and Archie, so already that's impressive. Though if the pacing's so slow that they won't get anywhere in one story anyways, I won't be impressed having to wait another year. For the Sonic story, wait, why is a fan comic continuation advertising candy and wasting a page? This page could have been spent on actual story progression. How long did it take to draw this? I had to click past a lot of load time causing nonsense. Anyways, we start out right in the middle of the action with Groucho saying that his philanthropy bot is out of control, but since he and his brother are sitting on top of a mecha with a ball and chain at that, I don't see why he called it a bot and not a mecha. However, when Groucho tells Sonic that he really has changed his villainous ways and the bot was meant to be a force for good, I immediately started to wonder if the plot twist is that he's telling the truth, because that would be more interesting, leading to a reveal about who caused it to go out of control. But I'm just remembering when I thought it'd be more interesting if Groucho really wasn't working for Eggman, and it turns out he was hiding that he was from Knuckles. So it's like the so-called plot twist with him is always the predictable. I still want to know why Groucho stopped being a villain when he had tried to kill Sonic and Porker just fine though. Then why has he been content with running Chemical Plant Zone for so long? I don't see how it could be a force for giving back to the community when it's got a ball and chain on it though. So someone would have to have attached that weapon to it. So there probably isn't a plot twist. Especially since Groucho says he's drawing a blank and asks his brother why they need the missiles. Yep. So already the story is on a bad start by disappointing its audience. If this was intended to be funny, it failed. So now I'm left asking why he's trying to kill Sonic when he hasn't tried to do that in ages and was just content with managing Chemical Plant Zone. So now he's just going to be put in prison. Then Amy shows up, and Sonic mentions that apparently she did a nice shot, but well, okay, now I see the arrow, but I can't tell what it's even hitting here. Amy remains cool when Sonic compliments her and simply tells her to move out of the way. She looks great, combining green from her classic design with red, and making her bob hairstyle messy so it looks refreshing. Actually, this is the perfect hairstyle for Amy. Then after they beat the mecha, Amy looks away being glum, so I wonder what this is going to lead to. Hopefully her apologizing to Sonic for totally buying that he had turned evil earlier. Wait, so where does the story take place anyways? I don't know what music track to play. Usually there's a text box that tells you. Sonic says it's been a while and he can't wait to catch up with her in Pixel Brain. Amy finally gets fed up with that insult, reminding him of his name and saying that he saved as many lives as him, if not more. Fortunately, Sonic implies that he really has undergone character development since this story arc, saying that he knows and he didn't mean anything by it, and I believe him. He was perfectly calm with leaving Tails in charge as the new hero Mobius, not to mention he said he should be cocky last issue. I'm so glad his long-time mistreatment is going to catch up with him though, because it was a story that was obvious since the beginning. It'd take a truly brilliant writer to finally think to have him apologize. And while it is briefly confusing that Amy's being mean to him when she just got him back as a friend, it actually makes sense that she'd be annoyed with him being a jerk. She knows he never became a villain, but that just makes it frustrating and confusing that he still insults Tails all the time. So if he is a hero after all, she wants him to start acting like it, which is why she finally tells Sonic that he should tell Tails he appreciates and trusts him. Sonic reluctantly admits that he does trust him to Amy, and inexplicably says that he trusts him. Though this isn't inexplicable when you consider he might be saying this to feel better because he still trusted him when no one else did. Unfortunately, there's just a silence like Amy doesn't believe him, which is stupid since Tails never bought that he became a villain. Then after Sonic is somehow surprised that Amy had thought he had gone bad when she clearly said it to him, he grabs her and she turns around mad, and then for some reason we see Super Sonic angrily flying towards her, and Sonic looks sad. So is this just a bad dream of Sonic's? That would explain the plot holes. Amy seems to be saying that she's just afraid of Super Sonic. And Sonic says nervously that they don't have to trust him, and he trusts his friends to do what's right. Kill him? You mean kill Super Sonic? Finally, we see that the tension is gone between them, and they decide not to help the Matsuo brothers get untrapped from the mecha because he doesn't trust them. We better not have gotten the whole story wasted on this. I'd rather see him apologize to Tails than see Amy waste our time reminding us that, no duh, the heroes are scared of Super Sonic. Unfortunately, that really is the whole story. So that was a gigantic waste of my time. It wasn't even a clear action scene. The mecha just... I guess Sonic spin attacked it, The story was by Stuart Gibb, and instead of having Sonic finally apologize to Tails and show them hugging, it was just a complete waste of our time. It didn't even explain why the Marxio brothers were fighting Sonic. Well, after that padding, we cut to the Technosphere. And a text box from Vector says that the city takes up 99% of the planet's surface. Can it really just count as one city then? That's different. And it's home to around 50 billion people. Must be a really big planet. And yet it still has the same gravity. It's not even like the city's super crowded because the Chaotix are almost the only ones in this panel. Also, I hope by surface they mean the land, because how would a planet that isn't mostly water have the same kind of breathable atmosphere as Earth or Mobius? How could a planet be literally 99% of a city? Like, we kind of need a whole bunch of trees and stuff to produce oxygen for the world. I guess they consider the forest to be part of the city too. Then Vector looks at the newspaper and sees an ugly civilian there with bee antenna. And somehow it looks familiar when it's not. Then a cop car moves away and someone runs away, and Vector asks what they're in such a rush for. If this story is bringing back the Special Zone, that would be a great way to undo the damage done to SCC's unique legacy. But it better have a good explanation for how it all survived. Like a wizard seeing what's about to happen in the zone with his crystal ball, and teleporting the universe into another dimension. But I expected brilliance with the last story and was disappointed, so... The heroes plan on going after the bad guys, and we see 3 black-cloaked thieves together, with one of them saying they need to examine their master's prize. Is this the dimension where the mysterious traveler came from? The bad guys reveal they have no idea where the master wants hyperconverters, whatever those are. And predictably, after one says that he wasn't followed because he's not a pathetic amateur, Espio shows up and says, "Really? Because you could have fooled me." Espio gets into a fist fight with some bad guys, and they make a reference to the fact that they've seen chameleons before. It's lampshaded that it was a mistake to come alone, so he must have had his other teammates hiding so they could surprise attack the bad guys, because otherwise, why was only Espio following them? The rest of the Chaotix joined in punching the bad guys, and the explanation for why they were late was that they can't scale the buildings like Espio. I'm glad it's finally being brought up, because Espio could do that in Knuckles' Chaotix. And yet this is the first time he's done this in a story, and it was off screen. Also, in Knuckles' Chaotix, every Chaotix could scale the walls though. Mighty could jump up them, even Vector could scale up the walls. So actually it's really arbitrary to have only Espio able to scale the walls. I guess it's just a Sonic Heroes reference, because only Espio could stay on the walls. But that's stupid. These guys appeared in the comic in the first place because of Knuckles' Chaotix, not Sonic Heroes. Then out of nowhere, there's some smoke, Mighty gets hit away, and someone calling himself the Scarlet Serpent comes up, with Vector thinking he's the Crimson Cobra. So, they'll bring back the Special Zone as long as there's a parallel universe to it. I wish I'd thought of that. I didn't, because it's not like the Star Cube where there's just a billion parallel universes of the same planet. Every time they go to another universe, it's completely different from Mobius. It does make more sense, it's less contrived that way, and we saw a mirror zone of Mobius earlier. But it kinda lacks the satisfaction of the Chaotix actually bringing back the zone they knew and loved, complete with their own loved ones, when they have to settle for a parallel universe instead. It'd be nice if Mighty saw his father again this issue, or at least a parallel version of his father. And the Technosphere seems exactly the same as their old city anyways, complete with normal-looking Mobians in it. Only it covers most of the planet, with no mention of a swamp for any variety. Isn't that like less world building? Of course, Vector is confused and gets attacked, not immediately getting that this isn't the Crimson Cobra he knows from the fact that he said he had a different name. I like that Vector point out that Crimson Cobra is much smaller than this guy, because I wouldn't have known. Out of nowhere, Scarlet Serpent decides to give up and retreat even though he just got a hit on Vector, and could have kept fighting. Oh, he was caught in a spotlight, so that makes sense. And for some reason a cop grabs Mighty when he clearly did nothing wrong, as the Serpent says they won't meet again. He says that this convenient device he got will make him omnipotent and let him rule the Special Zone. Yep, parallel universe. And the story ends with Vector and Mighty being handcuffed by the cops, even though they were clearly just trying to stop the bad guys. I mean, the Serpent referenced chameleons, so wouldn't that imply that Espio... I mean, Espio's the only one who isn't getting handcuffed. So maybe In this universe, there's another Espio and a whole bunch of chameleons with him. But there's no other Mighty and Vector in this part of the area, so the cops don't recognize them at all. So they just assume that they're part of the criminals because they were with them. They got there too late to see that they were fighting them. You know, you could have just had them find Charmy in this story. I'm really glad they're an alternate version of the Special Zone. It's finally repairing the damage to SDC a little by bringing back its iconic set piece. This would be like if the preboot Archie Cannon got back in Kidnapolis. But I can't help but be annoyed that instead of the arc just being wrapped up already with them finding Charmy, it ends on a cliffhanger. When SDC Online takes so long to update that I honestly thought they'd stopped working on it until now. Who wants to wait over a year for the conclusion to the story arc? I better learn where the hyperconverter came from and who made it, because it feels like a Diabolus Ex Machina. So that was the second story by McDonald, where the Chaotix punched some bad guys in the Mirror Special Zone. It was pretty brilliant to just use a parallel universe instead of risking people calling it contrived that they brought the old one back. Now what kind of stories did people waste their time making after this instead of just continuing this story already? I'm seeing Streets of Rage, Alex Kidd, and Decap Attack. Yeah, that's totally what Sonic fans want. For the Knuckles story, we start out in Mystic Jungle Zone in a storm, which looks pretty beautiful. I mean, the entire issue's art does. But this really feels like a rainforest. And there's a guy in a brown cloak here. I guess it's Zachary, based on what's underneath the cloak. He should have worn a mask too to really hide his identity. There's some lightning, and he sees the floating island in the distance. Wasn't he trying to get away from the floating island? He did that eons ago. How is he not super far away from it by now? I hope it's a different floating island with the echidnas on it. Sadly, we cut to daytime with Knuckles instead of us continuing to see what Zachary's doing. So I guess I'll never know because the story will be too short. Porker says with a helpful Metal Knuckles near him that something's seriously not right here. While this is the last known location of Zachary, he hasn't had any signal in over an hour. And since the tracking device feeds directly off Zachary's cybernetics, it should only power down if Zachary dies. Yeah, how would Zachary even know it existed so he could power it down on purpose? He's just been wandering the wilderness with presumably no reason to even check on his cyborg guy with technology. There better be a good explanation for this. Porker worries that this is a trap, and Knuckles says that they've been tracking him for weeks, and this is probably just some faulty equipment. That would be the simple and logical explanation. But sadly, I bet that won't be it. And Tikal says she's worried about how scared Porker is of the Metal Knuckles. Naturally, after the Metal Sonics had him kidnapped and traumatized. Then why did he even come with Knuckles? Knuckles at least explains that Porker is a lot braver than he thinks he is. That must be true if he's wasting his time coming with them. I like that the Metal Knuckles are called New Guardians. It explains who's going to guard the floating island after Knuckles dies, so the mere existence of the guardianship isn't entirely dependent on whether his family line always has children. The heroes reach a stone building, with Porker geeking out over the history. He finds a plate from the 4th Mobian Dynasty. Wait, an entire Mobian Dynasty? And yet Knuckles expects me to believe none of these artifacts are even Echidna. So who could have ruled all of Mobius for 4 dynasties, if not the Echidnas? Was there some other advanced species of Mobian I'm not aware of? Usually the Special Zone's portrayed as more advanced, what with having a city while usually Mobius has nature areas. So maybe the Special Zone ruled over Mobius. That would explain why there's Mobian-like people in both worlds. Porker says he recognizes totems from Green Hill Zone as well, and comes to the conclusion that Zachary has been stockpiling artifacts from all over Mobius. Zachary? As opposed to him simply having a base that has a lot of artifacts because they've been there for centuries. This looks like it could easily be the place where Knuckles will finally get his answers, because we're being given a pointless historical detail like this. It is nice to get a little development on Zachary's character though. He's a history buff, even if it doesn't benefit him at all. It has to. I mean, why would he take this long stockpiling artifacts all over the planet instead of achieving a real goal? He wants to destroy the world. It's not like the artifacts all have magic in them, and enough magical artifacts would let him build a doomsday device. I like that there's multiple Metal Knuckles, so the heroes really were prepared with their bodyguard amount. Tikal brings her attention to a scroll, and none of them can read it, even though it looks like the Echidna language. So either it's really ancient, or Zachary made a secret code out of Echidnaese. Again, why are Tikal and Knuckles able to speak modern English when apparently there was Echidnaese before them? Tikal says they should get the scrolls back home so Porker could decipher them later. Knuckles is naturally annoyed, and Tikal reassures him with her hand on his shoulder. Knuckles looks for clues on a desk and finds a white circle with wires. And we see some dynamite with ticking sound effects. Why would Zachary make such an obvious bomb? How did he even know he was being tracked? And all the Metal Knuckles rush up to the bomb that Knuckles is right next to, and I wonder how I'll be expected to believe they'll all survive this explosion. Rings, I guess. They were all really close to it. Then we cut to Knuckles digging out of the dirt above them, and everyone's alright. I guess he's really powerful if he's able to dig through stone walls. Knuckles is naturally furious because Zachary's destroyed both the Metalics and the Scrolls. Wow, this writer really hates Knuckles. I should have known better than to assume that because they're finally doing the story, they got a writer who doesn't have a vendetta against Knuckles getting his goddamn answers already. This isn't funny. This isn't satisfying. It's called arc fatigue. I refuse to believe they would have lost the Scrolls. Why would they have let go of them in the rush to escape? Not to mention they completely wasted the concept of all those Metal Knuckles. I hope there's a lot more of them on the island to guard the place after Knuckles, which would be common sense to write. Remember when the Ray story, there's a newspaper story where Knuckles said that nothing could ever go wrong with having Metal Knuckles on his side? Well, so much for that plot thread. Oh good, the writer at least had the mercy to have Porker still be holding those scrolls. Who cares at this point? The Metal Knuckles are gone. Sure, they were redundant, but that's why they should have all been kept in the Chaos Chamber, to guard it with the same abilities as Knuckles. I hate the text box at the end saying, "Find out in SCC soon." Fuck you! Talk about a lack of self-awareness. They should replace soon with next year, or however long this issue took to come out. Can you blame me for assuming they weren't working on this comic anymore? Well, this issue was nothing but disappointment. 3 stories that had a ton of promise, and only the Chaotix one was really good. And even then, its action scene was just the characters boringly punching, and it ended on a cliffhanger. All 3 of these could have been brilliant. And the biggest slap in the face is that instead of the heroes tracking down Zachary, finally, we get the mystery's resolution postponed even more, and the story ends with all the Metal Knuckles being destroyed. Before they could do anything whatsoever. Can't Porker just repair the Metal Knuckles? I mean, they're robots, and he is the smartest person they know. One panel implying that he was gonna do that would have helped save the story. But even then, who the fuck cares? I don't know why Zachary knew he was being tracked, or how he could have possibly disabled his tracking device. And I don't know what he's up to, or why the hell he wasted time stockpiling artifacts from all over Mobius if he was just gonna blow them up anyways. How long did it take him to do this? It's a confusing mess of plot holes that leads to nothing. I don't know what the scroll says when it could have easily just not been in code, and unless Zachary wrote it, it has no reason to be hard to decipher. So it just moves the goalposts. Who knows when the next issue will come out, if it even does. This is not the kind of comic where a serialized story arc structure works. They're better off being episodic if they take this long to release new issues. Same goes for Archie Sonic Online.